Hello for the 22nd week of the year, September 2 and 3. First reading Jeremiah 20:7-9, and the gospel reading Matthew 16:21-27. You've heard those phrases or those sentences, well, you'll be damned if you do, or you'll be damned if you don't. I think that Jeremiah and Peter in today's readings sort of experience that. You'll be damned if you do. You'll be damned if you don't. Jeremiah, first of all, listens to the Lord, and he buys into it, sort of, but when he starts preaching the Lord, he winds up with all kinds of problems and threats and derisions. Bad day. And then he's fed up and he says, Lord, you tricked me. Those weren't his words in the scripture. It says, Lord, you duped me, and I let myself be duped. He felt, at least, I'll be damned if I listen to the Lord, and I'll be damned if I don't. Because when he decided not to, the scripture there, he said, I say to myself, I will not mention him. I will speak in his name no more. But then deep down in his soul, he says, but then it becomes like fire burning inside me. He couldn't resist the Lord, and he becomes a great prophet. Peter, with Jesus tells his disciples, look, I'm going to be suffering and they're going to kill me. And Peter, he says, God forbid, Lord, no such thing will ever happen to you. Peter says, if I'm around, you're not going to be killed. I won't let you be killed. He certainly was trying to save his master, his rabbi. And then Jesus comes back with that famous quote, get behind me, Satan. How's that for gratitude? Peter wants to save him from death, and Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. It seems like Peter and Jeremiah experienced that in their life. I'm trying, but I'll be damned if I do. I'll be damned if I don't. Jesus never promises us a bed of roses. Sometimes it seems like a bed of thorns instead. He didn't expect that for himself. He was going to suffer and die, and when he goes back into Jerusalem. And he doesn't expect it out of his disciples either. Peter, the other disciples, Jeremiah, you and me. He doesn't promise us a bed of roses. And I don't know how you experience that, but it might be other people are a bed of thorns, or your own weakness can be a bed of thorns. Or, look at the people in Texas with the hurricane and the floods. Certainly at this time is a bed of thorns. Well, what's the key to all this? I think the key to all this is Satan. Get behind me, Satan. Who is Satan? What is Satan? Well, I don't know what you believe about Satan, but my belief of Satan is contained in today's gospel. It's a descriptive definition, and Jesus gives it. And I think that's Satan. Jesus said to Peter, you are an obstacle to me. You, Peter, are an obstacle to me. And the reason is because you are thinking not the way God thinks, Peter. You're thinking only the way humans think, Peter. And very often that's an obstacle to me and to life and to reality. Really? So, if that's true, that description of Satan, everything in the world, and in fact everything in the universe that is not aligned with God's way of thinking is satanic. And when you bring that into morality, I always like to quote St. Thomas Aquinas. If you're going to act not the way of God's thinking, but act only the way you want to do it, that's called sin, isn't it? And what is sin? Well, sin is a disruption of a proper relationship. Sin is when you and I act not the way God thinks, or the way that we have been created in the image and likeness of God, but you only do according to the way you think it is, and it's not aligned with the thinking of God. And that's called sin, or I think it's called satanic. Satan. Get behind me, Satan. You know, the word Satan in Hebrew is a common name. It's a common name, and it means adversary, like in war. Anything or everything that is an adversary to God's way is satanic. Is sin. Is a disruption of a proper relationship. Did you ever think of that? If that's true, then I think the rest of the gospel makes sense. Jesus says that you're to take up your cross and follow him. Take up not your bed of roses, but your cross. And that is really what life is all about. You must deny yourself. You must take up your cross or your crosses in life if you're going to follow me, follow Jesus. And he says the person who loses life will save it. Who wants to lose their life? I think Jesus Christ is talking here about losing your false self, your false life. And if you lose your false life, you're going to save life, because you're going to live your real self, your true self. Sorry, folks. Life is not a bed of roses, but it's taking up your cross and following Jesus Christ. Many people we know are this week and the next weeks and months in Texas are not living in a bed of roses, but in flooded front yards and backyards. Are you a disciple of Jesus? Are you satanic? Am I sinful? Do I have false concepts? False self? Well, the answer for me is yes. You don't have to look to some of the satanic and all the stuff of other people. You can look at yourself in the mirror tomorrow morning. If you do, you might have a good day.